to the business meetings for the city of Prattville this evening. We have no public hearings tonight, so we're going to move straight on into our council agenda. At this time, we invite you to stand for our Pledge of Allegiance and our invocation, which will be given by Councilor Chambers.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please bow your heads, we can eat and pray. Heavenly Father, we come to you today asking for your guidance, wisdom, and support as we begin this meeting. Help us to engage in meaningful discussion. Allow us to grow closer as a group and nurture the bonds of community. Fill us with your grace, Lord God, as we make decisions, and continue to remind us that all we do here today, all that we accomplish, is for the pursuit of truth, for the greater glory of you, and for the service of humanity. We ask these things in your name. Amen. Amen.
Madam Clerk, will you call the roll, please?
Councilor Strickland. Councilor Jackson.
Here.
Councilor Chambers.
Here.
Councilor Merritt.
Here.
Councilor Stritchen.
Here.
Councilor Benson. Here.
Having a quorum present, I do call this meeting to order. The character trait of the month is initiative, recognizing and doing what needs to be done before I'm asked to do it. At this time, we will seek approval of the minutes from the City Council meeting and the public hearings which were held on January the 2nd, 2024. Do we hear a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a second. All in favor of approving the minutes, please signify by raising your right hand. All opposed by a like manner. And the minutes are approved. At this time, we will welcome comments from persons present regarding tonight's agenda items only. If you have anything to speak on that is on tonight's agenda, we ask that you come forward, sign in, and you will have 3 minutes to address the council. Yes, ma'am, Ms. Finnegan.
John Lee Finnegan, 211 Deer Trace. I'm going to talk on resolution number 3 on the regular agenda. And I know that I don't know. You were looking up. Anyway, I know that in the budget, $600,000 is an approximate amount that they budgeted for the re-roofing of the roof and re-roofing of the roof of the building, and also that it has $3,450,000 in for the renovations of the Whitney Bank building. And the only thing I'm asking is, one of it says, part of it says that it's for economic development, and I'd really like you to think about prioritizing the money that's going. That's $4 million, and we talk about infrastructure, and I know we're waiting for grants and things of that nature, but really and truly, it just seems that that should be low on the list of things that have to be done. I can understand maybe the roofing and getting that, and getting the information technology in there, but maybe let's cut back. This is just my personal opinion, and put that money elsewhere where it's more needed. I just don't think this should be high on the priority list, especially a downtown venue. We've got enough of those. Anyway, when I saw that, I just wanted to make it known how I feel that this is something that doesn't need to be done now. Let's focus our money on other areas.
Thank you, Ms. Finnegan. Any questions or comments from the council? Thank you. Is there anyone else present who wishes to speak on any item that is on tonight's agenda? Yes, sir. Mr. Cimis, please come forward and address the council. You will have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Dr. Jerry Cimis, 141 North Chestnut Street. I wanted to talk about a consent agenda number 2, the attorney agreements. Ms. Strash said that they were just a little bit of housekeeping. I think when I get done, you'll realize it's more than that. Many of you have never seen the agreements. I've had the agreements for 3 months now. I provided you a copy of a color-coded highlighted one that happens to be Mr. Odom's. The others are similar as far as some of the flaws. If you turn to page 2 of his contract, you'll see in red those items are what violate either IRS regs or a misuse of IRS forms. If you look at the yellow highlights, those are what violate either the city ordinance, the HR manual, or they violate the 2023 city benefits guide. And I provided the copies of those in exhibits A, B, and C, and I'll talk more about that. The blue under section 8E is just simply a false statement. It says that you previously reviewed and approved these contracts, which never happened, which is why we're here tonight. As far as federal, in the benefits section, it says contractors can be eligible for flexible spending. That's false. IRS prohibits it, and I show you that in Exhibit D. Under salaries, it says that we'll process it with a W-4. That's false. W-4s are for employees only, as are W-2s. Contractors have no withholding. They only receive what's called a 1099 NEC if they're an attorney, and I provided a copy of that in Exhibit F. Also, Exhibit G was interesting. Ms. Thrash sent you an email back in January 11, and she said that Mr. Odom has a 1099, and that needs to be changed to a W-2 because it precludes her from adding him to the group health. Well, that can't be done because he's a contractor. As far as municipal, I've already gone over that Exhibit A, B, and C cover the ordinance as well as the appointed official attorneys, and that refers to those that are eligible if they're employees. And then the employee benefits clearly state that you must have 30 hours or more as an employee or a dependent to be eligible. The other problem, if you look at Exhibit H, is Mr. Odom's appointment reso is flawed. It talks about FICA and workers' comp. Contractors don't pay FICA, they pay an SE employment tax. There is no FICA, there is no workers' comp. I've met
Mr. Cimis, I need to stop you there. Your time has run out.
Oh, okay. Does
Any councilors have any questions? Yes, sir, Mr. Jackson.
Yes, sir. Do you mind continuing? You said something about the resolution being flawed because it says FICA and workers' comp.
Right. So that resolution is as an independent contractor. So that resolution needs to be changed. Ms. Thrash said that the underlying resolutions were perfectly fine, and that's true for Judge Colley and for Mr. Ekdahl. By the way, there is no agreement for Mr. Riddle, and I'm still investigating why there wouldn't be one. I suspect that's because he's not seeking any benefits, but he still should have a professional contract. So that was that issue. I did meet with the examiners of public accounts, and you'll see in Exhibit I that they sent all of my evidence on to the Attorney General's office for further research. And finally, I communicated with each of the insurance companies, whether it was MetLife, Blue Cross, VSP, Catastrophic Cap, and the general consensus of each of them that responded is they cover municipal employees and their dependents. They don't cover contractors. So what I'm concerned about is we've got contracts where we're offering Mr. Odom and the other attorneys things that can't be delivered because the insurance companies have said to me, we're not going to honor those claims. So in my final exhibit to you was Exhibit J, where I show you the cost and exposure risk of over $113,000 in exposure and costs, that risk that you don't need to make in terms of doing this particular thing. It's too great of a risk rather than simply adjust their salary and have them obtain their own private insurance. So, and that 113,000 presumes that the catastrophic cat company is going to cover it, and I've already discussed it with their regional manager, and he said if there's a claim for catastrophic and if they're not a bona fide employee, their policy is they're going to refund you, the city, the premiums you paid, and they're going to deny the claim. My biggest fear is that Mr. Odom or one of our attorneys gets in a catastrophic car accident and they're on respirators, God forbid. Do we want to bear that cost of millions of dollars versus just pay them a fair wage and let them go get their own insurance? The other advantage of getting your own insurance is if they don't like the way the insurance company's paying, they can only look to themselves because they pick the insurance. And so that would be one of my recommendations to you, is that even if it were legal, which it's not, even if you could legally give them group benefits, why would you take that risk when it's much simpler? There's no withholding, there's no paperwork on our end from Mr. Oakley and his staff. So I just don't understand why. In fact, if you look at Mr. Ekdahl's contract with the city of Millbrook, Mayor Kelly's contract says you are a contractor, you'll receive a 1099, and there are no benefits with it. Now, I'm a little bit more liberal, saying we want to retain good attorneys, and so we need to pay them a fair wage, and then they can go out and get their own insurance, and that helps protect us. So I'm really worried because the insurance companies aren't going to cover. And I've spent over a week communicating with all of the different insurance companies.
So you mentioned something about Mr. Falk, and I see this email from, so...
Yes, so I've been working with Mr. Falk. He's been working with Ms. Hope Hicks, who's been very nice to work as your consultant, and they've been working with Malden and Jenkins, the independent accountants. By the way, I sent them a 34-page documentation of all of this so that they know what's going on. And so Mr. Falk's problem is the examiners lack the ability to enforce. So they can have findings, but they can't go tell you, the city, you've got to go correct it. When I found out who the enforcement arm was, they said it's the AG, so we send it to the AG. So that's the email where they notified me that they sent the packet to the AG. By the way, the insurance companies asked for the names of these individuals, and I said I'd rather not name them at this point. I'd rather work it out with the city where we pay them a fair wage and we adjust the agreements. By the way, I think it's awfully unfair to ask you on a consent agenda to approve and ratify agreements which some of you, and maybe all of you, have never even had the agreements. I've had them for months because it's a public record, but I don't see how you logically could even vote on something if you haven't had the agreements, and I wonder how they ever got approved without your authorization. And that was one of the biggest concerns that the public accounts had, was that this happened to begin with. But they lack authorization to direct a municipality. All they can do is send it on to the AG.
Did you make Mrs. Thrash aware, our HR director, aware of this email that Mr. Paul sent you from the examiners?
I have not, no.
Because I think she's informed us that I guess she's been in contact with them, but I was just wondering if she was aware of this and that
Right,
forwarded on to the AG's office.
I don't know if she's aware, and I don't know if Mr. Paul told her that they forwarded it on to the AG. And I'm not trying to create trouble. I'm hoping we can resolve this at this level and adjust these agreements much like Millbrook does, only Millbrook says no benefits. I take a little bit relaxed opinion saying I value the attorneys we have. I think we need to pay them a fair wage. I think then it's up to them to go get their own private insurance. That way we're not in the exposure risk since, like I told you, catastrophic cap isn't going to cover, and I really fear that we could have an incident where one or more of our attorneys gets in that situation and then we're on the hook because I don't think our city insurance is going to cover. And so I wanted to make you all aware of this so that you're not confused saying, gee, I wish I knew all this. I thought it was simply a housekeeping. This is more than a housekeeping. This involves IRS regs. And by the way, the IRS, when I spoke to the IRS agent, they said, we will hold the city accountable first. I said, not the taxpayer first? They said, no. They said the city should never have offered independent contractors a flexible spending plan. They should know better. I said, what about the attorneys? They said, well, they should know too, but we're first going to hold the city responsible for ever even offering flexible spending to them when it's not even on the table. And so I think that's critical for Judge Colley because, as you know, he gets his health insurance through his wife, but he participates, according to Ms. Thrash, he participates in the flexible spending. And I'm not looking to injure anyone or have them to have a large taxable event. I want to work this out at this level, and that's why I haven't given the names and addresses of any of the names to the insurance companies. But generally speaking, I work in the insurance consulting business, and insurance companies like to limit their exposure. So when you say, wait, it's not just employees, but now it's contractors, you opened up a whole nother can of scope of risk for the insurance companies. Could you possibly get that kind of policy? Yes, you can. They'll write a policy and they'll also change the premium to be reflective of the risk because the contractors you hire are not vetted necessarily the same as an employee. So it is possible to do that kind of thing, but I think the simplest and easiest way is simply give them a fair wage and let them go get their own insurance and be done with it. No withholding, nothing but a 1099. Does that
Beth, do you have any further questions for Mr. Cimis?
So what's the best way to handle this situation? I mean, obviously we have an email here from the examiner's office. How do we get this resolved so that the city and the taxpayers aren't damaged in any way? I just want a good resolution to figure this out, to sort this out so that no one is damaged by this situation.
Is your question addressed to the council or is your question addressed to Mr. Cimis?
Thinking out loud.
I think that, first of all, if I were in your seat and you asked me to approve agreements I've never seen, I'd be telling you, we're tabling this. I can't possibly make an informed decision about agreements that Dr. Cimis has had for months, but I've yet to see. And they were approved back on September 25th, and yet they never came before you, even though it said they came before you. That I find troubling. But the bottom line is that's why it's before you now, is because the examiners also saw that and they said, the mayor has no authority to sign these agreements without your approval. But if you've not seen them, I know if I were in your shoes, I know what I'd be responding back.
Mr. Cimis, I'll address that personally. We did, when we adopted the budget, we approved these. That was our approval. When we saw these in the budget, we saw exactly how much the costs were, how much all of this was.
You read the 5-page agreement, which has things...
We read hundreds and hundreds of pages before we approved that budget. This was part of the budgeting process. We agreed to it. This has already been voted on once. This is just a final stamp of approval. So this has already been voted on.
I'm not sure. I talked to several council people and talked to them about the agreement. The agreement that's before you, not the hundreds of pages.
Well, there were hundreds of pages in our budget, and I can't say that any other counselor up here read the whole budget. I can only say what was available to us to read before we voted and what I read before I voted.
And so you're saying you read Mr. Odom's 5-page agreement?
I'm saying I read everything that came through with our budget reports and our financial reports.
That doesn't answer my question. That just tells me you read a bunch of pages. So anyhow, that's my point. We can solve it here, or we can go forward. And so I'm hoping that it doesn't have to elevate beyond locally, that we can work it out. But if not, I've been fighting this issue for 10 years, and the small game is I at least convinced folks that they're contractors, not employees. That's what we've been doing since 2004. I estimate we've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars treating someone as an employee when they're a contractor. So it's a small game, but I'm not done with this situation. So I'll leave it up to you, and I hope we can work it out locally. If not, then I'll have to go to the next level.
Thank you, Mr. Cimis.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else present this evening that wishes to speak on any agenda item? Hearing none, Mr. Mayor, please come forward and give us your report.
Yes, ma'am. It's good to see everyone again. And councilors, I think we all know on January 8th and 9th, in just a few hours, we received over 6 inches of rain, and now tonight we're basically, in the morning, we're basically looking at somewhere around 14-degree weather. I'll tell you, Mother Nature has done quite a job trying to challenge Prattville with all these different types of weather patterns, and I just really want to compliment our staff, our various teams, whether it's our police department, our fire department, public works, and so many others. There was some downtown flooding during the rain event, and our crews were able to get out there and be able to get downtown back in good shape just as quick as possible. There were some other areas around town that were impacted as well, but I will say that 2 big areas that served the community very well was because of council's action in a couple of stormwater projects. One of those was the Washington Street. The other one is known as the Selma Highway, and also Thomas Avenue, where we've had some flooding in yards and homes and streets on all of those. And some Selma highways had to be closed down a couple of times, a lane or two on Highway 31. These areas fared very, very well because of that. We might have spent over $5 million, but Prattville really appreciates it. We're going to be needing some more projects like that in the very near future. So again, I just want to thank you for approving all those, and look forward to many, many other projects. One other project during the rain event was that Northington Road took a very big hit. The stormwater pipe going up underneath Northington Road, real close to Red Eagle, was basically blown out, and it has been opened back up, is my understanding. I don't know if they've gotten the asphalt down, but they do have it opened back up. With all that said, councilors, we still do not have a city-county maintenance agreement for our streets, and I hope that we'll be getting all that pulled together in the very near future. And after that, Mr. Jackson, I believe that we're going to need a committee meeting on that one, listening to our city attorney on that. So hopefully we'll have that to us very, very soon. Over the weekend, I tell you, the weather was very nice, even though it's not going to look like that tonight. But the MLK parade and event, the weather I thought was very good. I thought the parade and event was very well as well. It started in our 2.0 softball complex and went down MLK, came through downtown, and ended back up at the 7th Street First Baptist Church, and I think it was a very good event. With all that said, there was also, on the previous Saturday, there was a historical marker installed there talking about the history of the 7th Street Baptist Church. And if anybody has the time, I encourage them to go by and see exactly what that marker has to offer to our community. One other event I need to, or CDBG grant I need to mention is our Bent Tree CDBG grant. I've been informed and have received documentation that we were not approved, but we are waiting to get further information on that CDBG, so that way as we go back to reapply again, we'll have more information on how to adjust our grant, and hopefully we'll be successful on that one. If anyone remembers, I believe Edward Clinton came up in one of our meetings because had some spring waters that were going into several residents' backyards, so we look forward to that in the near future. Just a little PSA, our public safety building will be open as a warming center from 5 p.m. to 8 a.m. and I hope that it won't be needed. I hope everyone will, I hope most everybody's already in their homes and sitting beside a nice fire with a heater, and looking forward to as much as possible a pleasant night. One of the concerns that we might have as we get into some of these freezing temperatures around here is that after things start thawing out. Everybody remembers December 22, when it got really cold for a lot longer period of time. That's when all the public safety had to keep going out because the pipes were busted, and hopefully we've all learned from that one. We won't have as many of those. Counselors, just as a reminder, EDAA Winter Conference starts on the 29th of this month. Staff and I are looking forward to this important conference, and we'll be bringing back some very information processes that hopefully we can use for economic development and other departments as well. Madam President, that's the end of my report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Do any councilors have any questions or comments for the mayor? Thank you, sir. At this time, we will move into reports from council members on special committees. Councilor Jackson.
No, ma'am.
Councilor Chambers.
No, ma'am.
Councilor Merrick.
No, ma'am.
Councilor Sturgeon. And I have none. At this time, we will have a report on the state of the city finances from Mr. Oakley.
Yes, ma'am. So the first page of your packet is a general fund revenue report, and it shows that we have received $10,842,480 for the fiscal year to date, and this represents a 7.69% increase over the same period in the prior year. The next page is the tax breakdown comparison. On the tax side, we were up 6.29% when compared to the previous December. And just as a reminder, these are November sales. So we'll have one more of the Christmas season sales to present next month. The next three pages show the general fund expenses broken down by department. And with 25% of the fiscal year complete, we have spent 23.45% of our budgeted expenditures in the general fund, tracking slightly below budget there. The next page is the wastewater enterprise fund income statement. The wastewater fund generated a net income from operations of $288,771 for December. Operating expenses are in line with budget at 25.2%, while overall expenses are slightly below budget at 23.6%. Next page is the sanitation enterprise fund income statement. The sanitation fund reported a net loss for the month of $5,968. This was due to there being 3 pay periods in the month of December again this year. Operating expenses and overall expenses are slightly above budget for this fund as well at 27 and 28% respectively. Next page is the Judicial Special Revenue Fund income statement. The Judicial Fund generated a net income of $17,620 for December. We did pay the quarterly Metro Jail payment during this month, but we also transferred $200,000 of the budgeted general fund transfer this month, which kind of offset it. Overall expenses are right in line with budget at 25%. Next, four statements are presented quarterly and comprise the gas tax fund, capital projects fund, and group health fund income statements, as well as the Parks and Recreation revenue report. For the gas tax fund, the revenue is coming in slightly above budget at 17.6% for this point in the year, and there were also no gas tax expenses this quarter. Next page is the capital projects fund income statement. It shows we have spent just shy of $4 million on projects and debt service in this fund during the first quarter. Primary project expenses were related to Stanley Jensen Stadium renovations, Newton Park renovations, Thomas Avenue drainage, the industrial access roads in the South Park, and the public safety training facility. Next page is the group health fund income statement, and this fund performed well during the first quarter of the year with an accumulated net income of $314,670 and has roughly $1,110,000 in the bank. Next page is the Parks and Recreation income report. It shows we've collected approximately 15% of our budgeted Parks and Rec income as of the end of December. That totals to $128,238 for the quarter. Next page is the bank balances report, and the total of all bank balances citywide at the end of December was $53,551,302. And then the last page in your packet is the accounts payable and debt balances report. And the total outstanding AP and debt balance citywide at the end of December was $57,004,339, while the city's non-enterprise fund debt was $24,195,089.
Thank you, Mr. Oakley, for the report. Do any councilors have any questions or comments for Mr. Oakley? Thank you, sir. Tonight, we have the opportunity to create a consent agenda. Possible items on this agenda include number 1, which is to appoint, it's a resolution number 1, to appoint election officials for the 2024 special election for Councilor of District 5. Resolution number 2 is to ratify and affirm agreements with the city attorneys, municipal court judge, and city prosecutor. Do I hear a motion to create such a consent agenda? We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a second. All in favor of creating the consent agenda, please signify by raising your right hand. All opposed by a like sign. And the consent agenda is created in front of us. At this point, do I hear a motion to adopt the consent agenda? We have a motion. Is there a second? There is a second. Is there any discussion on the consent agenda?
Yeah, I just ask that we table resolution number 2 on the consent agenda, seeing that Dr. Cimis has reached out to Mr. Park with the examiner's office and that he's forwarded all the information to the Attorney General's office. And I'd say, you know, that we can do this because, again, I want to protect the citizens and I want to protect our attorneys, Andrew and Egdahl, and all of those guys as well. So I ask that we table.
Is this in the form of a motion, Mr. Jackson? And I understand that we'll have to separate this out from a consent agenda.
Yeah, I was just going to say, just for a procedural matter, if any member of the council is not in favor of the consent agenda, it must go on the regular agenda.
Okay, so please help us to sort out how will we do that. Is that what you desire, to take this one item off so that we may request a table for it?
Yes.
Okay, help us walk through that procedure, please.
Okay, so there doesn't have to be a formal motion for that. If any member objects to the consent agenda, then it'll automatically revert to being the first regular agenda item.
So right now, we will deal with just resolution number 1 on the consent agenda, move forward with that, and then this will move into resolution number 1 for regular.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you so much. So we're going to be looking now at the consent agenda as only resolution number 1, which is to appoint election officials that we've already read in. So now, should we start again with making the consent agenda before us, or is it? Okay, so at this point, we're going to hear a motion to create a consent agenda with only resolution number 1. Is there such a motion?
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. All in favor of creating a consent agenda with only 1 item, please signify by raising your right hand. All opposed by a like sign. And we now have a consent agenda with 1 item in front of us. Is there any discussion on this new consent agenda? Hearing none, all in favor of the consent agenda with resolution number 1, please signify by raising your right hand. All opposed by a like sign. And the consent agenda is adopted. So we will move forward into our regular agenda, bumping each item 1 down so that we are now having item number 1 on our regular agenda as what we had considered resolution number 2 on our consent agenda. So I will read that in again. To ratify and affirm agreements with the city attorneys, municipal court judge, and city prosecutor. Councilor Jackson, do you care to make a motion?
Yes, ma'am. I motion that we table this until we can get a resolution back from the Attorney General's office.
Mr. Odom, does a table have to have a majority vote, or is this a unanimous vote?
We would have to have a majority vote.
Majority vote. Okay. Is there any discussion on Councilor Jackson's motion? Do we have to have a second for that?
Yes.
Okay, so we have a motion. Do we have a second? There is no second. So the motion dies and we go back to resolution number 1 on our agenda, which is now properly before us as it stands written. So all in favor of resolution number 1? Yes, sir, Mr. Jones?
Yeah.
Okay, is there any discussion on resolution number 1?
So first you'll have to have it read in, and then a motion, a second, then discussion.
So we're going to have to go and read it in from here.
That's correct.
Thank you. That's okay. This is just procedural, something we don't do every day, so we're going to walk through it as we learn as we go, all of us. All right, so we're looking at, it should be under consent agenda here, number 2, and I am the sponsor for this, so I need to call on someone to read this. Councilor Strichick, would you read consent agenda item number 2, which is now resolution number 1 for us, please?
Resolution number 1, to ratify and affirm agreements with the city attorney, municipal court judge, and city prosecutor. So moved, Madam President.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Is there any discussion on resolution number 1? Hearing none, all in favor of resolution number 1, please signify by raising your right hand. All opposed by a like sign. And resolution number 1 is adopted. All right, so we are on our regular agenda, and what we had as resolution number 1 will now be numbered resolution number 2, but you'll need to look for resolution number 1. It is to award bid number 023020 to the Smitherman Brothers Construction Company Incorporated for sidewalk improvements along Old Ridge Road, Old Farm Lane, and Boardroom Drive. Alabama Department of Transportation project number TAPAATA23923 for the engineering department at a cost not to exceed $679,580 with a net cost to the city not to exceed $135,916. Councilor Jackson, will you introduce resolution number 2, please?
Yes, ma'am. Whereas pursuant to Resolution Book 2022B, page 246 on December 6, 2022, and Resolution Book 2023, page 33 on February 21st, 2023, the City of Prattville plans to proceed with LDOT project number TAPAATA23923 for sidewalk improvements along Old Ridge Road, Old Farm Lane, and Boardroom Drive, whereas the engineering department has specifications drafted for said improvement project. And whereas 7 sealed bids were received, opened, and read aloud on January 9th, 2024 at 10 a.m. in the council chambers at City Hall, and Smithman Brothers Construction Company Incorporated was the lowest responsible bidder at a cost of $679,580 for said improvement project. And whereas this is a budget expense in the capital project fund, now therefore be resolved that the City Council of the City of Prattville hereby awards bid number 023020 to Smithman Brothers Construction Company Incorporated in an amount not to exceed $679,580. Net cost to the city not to exceed $135,916 for said improvement project, and said funds are approved and appropriated from the fiscal year 2024 budget line item capital projects fund, TAP 2023, Old Ridge sidewalks. Be it further resolved that the mayor is hereby authorized to execute any and all documents necessary to carry out the intent of this resolution. So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Is there any discussion on resolution number 2? Hearing none, all in favor of resolution number 2, please signify by raising your right hand. All opposed by a like sign. And resolution number 2 is adopted. Resolution number 3 is to authorize the mayor to enter into an agreement with Civil Southeast LLC for construction, engineering, and inspection services for sidewalk improvements along Old Ridge Road, Old Farm Lane, and Boardroom Drive. Alabama Department of Transportation, project number TAPAATA23923 for the engineering department at a cost not to exceed $101,937 with a net cost to the city not to exceed $20,308 $87.40. I need some new glasses tonight. Councilor Jackson, will you read this one in for us as well, please?
All right. Whereas the engineering department has identified a need for construction, engineering, and inspection services for sidewalk improvements along Old Ridge Road, Old Farm Lane, and Boardroom Drive, LDOT project number TAPAATA23923. And where Civil Southeast LLC has the expertise to provide said services at a cost not to exceed $101,937. And whereas Section 41165183 Code of Alabama 1975 as amended allows contracts to secure services for engineers possessing a high degree of professional skill to be let without competitive bidding. And whereas this is a budgeted expense in the capital project fund, now therefore be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Prattville that the mayor is hereby authorized to enter into said agreement with Civil Southeast LLC for said construction, engineering, and inspection services at a cost not to exceed $101,937. Net cost to the city not to exceed $20,387.40. And funds are approved and appropriated from fiscal year 2024 budget line item capital projects fund, tab 23, Old Ridge sidewalks. Be it further resolved that the mayor is hereby authorized to execute any and all documents necessary to carry out the intent of this resolution. So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Is there any discussion on resolution number 3? Hearing none, all in favor of resolution number 3, please signify by raising your right hand. All opposed by a like sign. And resolution number 3 is adopted. Resolution number 4 is to authorize the mayor to enter into an agreement with PWBA Architects Incorporated for architectural and engineering services for the information technology, economic development, and public facilities project at 124 West Main Street for the executive department at a cost not to exceed $75,040. Councilor Chambers, will you introduce this resolution, please? Yes, sir. Sorry.
Yes, ma'am. Whereas the executive department has identified a need for architectural and engineering services for the information technology, economic development, and public facilities project at 124 West Main Street, whereas PWBA Architects Incorporated has the expertise to provide said services at a cost not to exceed $75,040. And whereas 41-16-5183 Code of Alabama 1975 as amended allows contracts to secure services with architects possessing a high degree of professional skill to be let without competitive bidding. Whereas this is a budgeted expense in the capital funds project. Now therefore be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Prattville that the mayor is hereby authorized to enter into said agreement with PWBA Architects Incorporated for said architectural and engineering services at a cost not to exceed $75,040, and funds are approved and appropriated from fiscal year 2024 budget line item capital project fund / bank building renovations. Be it further resolved that the mayor is hereby authorized to execute any and all documents necessary to carry out the intent of this resolution. So moved, Madam President.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? We have a second. Is there any discussion on resolution number 4? Hearing none, all in favor of resolution number 4, please signify by raising your right hand. All opposed by a like sign. And resolution number 4 is adopted. Resolution number 5 is to authorize the mayor to enter into an agreement with Alabama Bass Trail to host an Alabama Bass Trail Tournament Series Divisional on May the 11th, 2024 at a cost not to exceed $8,500. Councilor Strichick, will you introduce this resolution, please?
Yes, ma'am. Whereas Alabama Bass Trail desires to conduct and promote an Alabama Bass Trail Tournament Series Divisional with a tournament date of May 11th, 2024. Whereas the City of Prattville shall serve as host for said event. Whereas the host fee for said event shall be $8,500, and whereas the budget expense in the Parks and Recreation Department. Now therefore be resolved by the City Council of the City of Prattville that the mayor hereby is authorized to enter into an agreement with Alabama Bass Trail to host that tournament on May 11th, 2024. Further resolved, funds in an amount not to exceed $8,500 are hereby authorized and approved to be paid to Alabama Bass Trail for said tournament, and said funds are approved and appropriated for fiscal 2024 budget line items, Parks and Recreation operating supplies. So moved, Madam President.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Is there any discussion on resolution number 5? Hearing none, all in favor of resolution number 5, please signify by raising your right hand. All opposed by a like sign. And resolution number 5 is adopted. This concludes the items that we have on our agenda this evening. At this time, the council will welcome comments from persons present. Anyone who wishes to speak, we ask that you line up and sign in here with the clerk, and you will have 3 minutes to address the council. Is there anyone? Yes, Ms. Finnegan, please come forward.
Yes, I'd like to go back to number 4 on the agenda regarding the architecture for the Whitney Bank. Anyway, when I was researching this, and this is just kind of housekeeping, I looked over several minutes, and it was put down as Whitney Bank, Whitney Hancock Bank, and Hancock Whitney Bank. So if we could just, just get that straightened out. Also, I did look at the PWBA architects, and they look like they're phenomenal. So I'm sure they'll do a great job. Second of all, next month is the Park and Rec Special Committee meeting on February 15th. Well, unfortunately, that's when the PC meeting, the Planning Committee meeting is at 3, and the Park and Rec is at 3:30. And I'm only asking that when special committee meetings are going to be set, to kind of look at it. We know that the city council meetings are specific dates, the PC, the HPC, and the BZA, they're all set days of the month. So when special committees meetings are coming up, kind of check that out so they don't clash. And if possible, I would like to see if the Park and Rec could be moved to another date, because I have no idea, of course, what's on the Planning Committee, but sometimes they have some big items. In fact, this one coming up has the rezoning up at High Point for the Ivy School, and that's pretty important. So anyway, if it can be moved, I'd appreciate it, and I'm sure others would too. But just take that into consideration, that when you're setting up your special meetings, that it's not going to clash with regularly scheduled meetings.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Mr. Strichick.
Yeah, we'll take that into consideration.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
We're not going to move this one. So
Okay.
It's
Is there a reason for that? I mean,
Yes, as everyone's, as you said, there's so much going on. This is a date that everyone agreed
Well, that's
on. They want to make it.
It's a month away. I mean,
Understand, but if we're going to keep this date for now. But it's not too tedious, the agenda we have on this Parks and Rec meeting, so I think it'll be okay, but probably want to attend.
Yeah, well.
But we're going to keep this one locked in, but we'll look at that down the road. Thank you.
One more thing, real quick. If possible, and I've requested this many times, if you could videotape the BCA and the HPC meetings. We do this one and we do the Planning Commission meetings, and I just think this would be, you know, a lot of people can't attend those meetings because of the time. So being able to view it would be very, very helpful. And a while back, the HPC was actually videotaped, so I don't see why in this day and age why we can't do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Finnegan. Yes, ma'am, please come forward, state your name and address for the council, and you'll have 3 minutes to address us.
Well, I did have a question.
I'm so sorry, Mr. Jackson, I did not see you.
So my question is to that, why haven't we been recording those meetings that she mentioned?
That's not my purview. I'm not here for those. I don't know. Mr. Mayor, do you have a comment for that?
I know it was brought up to the BCA for their consideration on it. I believe they turned it down, but council would like to have it looked at. Please reach out to Scott Stevens.
Okay, thank you. Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry, Mr. Jackson.
Christina Garner, 1608 Trolley Road in District 3. I know it's not on tonight's agenda, but thank you again for allowing me to speak about the situation involving our Library Board of Trustees as you all continue to consider possible candidates for the 2 vacancies. On January 4th, the APPL Board, as it exists now with its 5 members, held a special meeting during which the board established officers. All 4 of the newly established officers are the Clean Up Alabama sympathizers who were appointed by the County Commission, as I've spoken to almost all of you about. Including Mr. Bowles, who is now the chair of the library board. This special meeting violated the Open Meetings Act for a number of reasons, including misuse of executive session and a failure to publicly identify the 2 individuals whom the board has recommended to you all to consider to fill the remaining vacancies. I understand these board members are new to their roles, and I'm happy to extend them some grace as they learn the ins and outs of their responsibilities. But I am hard-pressed to believe that Mr. Bowles was unaware of the aspects of this meeting that were in violation of the Open Meetings Act, given his former position on the City Council. In my conversations with several of you, I expressed my concerns about this new board and my intention to hold them accountable by attending their meetings, an intention which many of you encouraged in the interest of transparency and civic involvement. However, it is very difficult for me and other citizens to hold the board accountable if they misuse executive session in violation of the law to hide their business conduct. With all this in mind, I once again encourage you all to carefully vet the candidates you are considering for the 2 vacancies and to view any recommendation from this board with a healthy dose of wariness. I suspect there is a reason why they do not want their conduct out in the open, and I am inherently distrustful of any public figure who avoids transparency. As always, I'm grateful for all of you and your dedication to supporting our library and our community, as you've shown in the ways that you have voted and behaved regarding library issues. I trust that you all are committed to appointing an appropriate candidate to fill each of the remaining vacancies. Given the troublesome start to this new board's service, it is essential now more than ever that these vacancies be filled with individuals who will fulfill their duties with integrity and transparency and hold their fellow board members accountable. Thank you again for your time and consideration on this crucial community issue.
Thank you for your comments. Any questions or comments from the council? Thank you. Yes, ma'am. Ms. Robinson, please come forward, state your name and address for the council, and you'll have 3 minutes to address us.
My name is Barbara Robinson. I live at 123 White Oak Court, Prattville, Alabama. And I just want to say good evening to all the council presidents and my mayor. I just want to say thank you. I appreciate what the council, our city council, Jackson, the mayor, and all of you all, how you all are working on the North Highland Park. I know it's been a long haul, but we can see progress coming, and I'm very appreciative for that. And I always was told, give people their flowers while they live. You know, we can say good things about people when they're gone, but I just want to let you all know, I know that I've been a headache to all of you probably somewhere along the line, especially my mayor, but that's my mayor. And you know I love him. And, but I just want to say thank you all. I really appreciate it, and the mayor has been very supportive. I appreciate him, how he came. He participated with us at after breakfast, after the parade, and everything like that for the Martin Luther King. And he also came back and bought his, I don't know how many breakfasts he got, but I'm glad he saved me some for when I got back. I had to miss the event, but he also came, and I would just want to like to remind you guys about what I'm doing. I'm planning in ahead for, and you'll probably see me again, for June 1st of 2024 for our senior citizen. And what I do every year is an annual event, and so I'm trying to get you all prepared, so maybe y'all can put it on your docket or something. The first Saturday in June from 4 to 7, that y'all will come out, you know, because you'll be amazed how a lot of the people live in your district don't really know who their representatives are. But if you guys at least come out, if you don't stay long, because I would love to have you all, everybody, to come out, you know, and just so that our peoples and our senior citizens will know who their representatives are. So I'm starting early. So y'all probably see me, it's not a protest, but, you know, I'm just trying to get it in early. And I thank you all so much for giving me this opportunity. Just thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Robinson. Do any councilors have any questions? Oh, Mr. Mayor would like to address her. Mr. Jackson?
Well, my only question is, this event you're talking about, you going to have some more of the chicken and waffles? Because I did get 6 of them, yesterday, and my family and crew and I really did enjoy those. So, got chicken and waffles. Pretty much put me on the books to be there.
Oh, okay. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Mr. Jackson?
Yes, ma'am. I appreciate you coming up and acknowledging the progress and the work that the mayor, the council, Kelly, and everyone's doing to improve North Island, because that means a lot. And I know here I've had discussion, Kelly, Robert, all of us, and I know it means a lot. They've heard your voices, but they are truly working, and we're grateful for that. And I appreciate you acknowledging that. Also, if he didn't buy 20 to 30 plates yesterday, don't give him too many kudos, all right? He should have bought at least 30.
Well, hopefully in 2025, I hope to see all of you all come up, help us support, what we're doing. We're trying to improve and just, make our community better. We're trying to bring in everybody together. I would appreciate it so much.
Thank you, Mrs. Robinson. Is there anyone else present this evening that wishes to speak? Hearing none, we will move into closing comments. Mr. Mayor? Mr. Jackson? Mr. Chambers? Mr. Merritt?
No, ma'am.
And Mr. Struczyk? Our next regularly scheduled council meeting is Tuesday, February the 6th, 2024, 6 p.m. right here, same time, same place. See you there. Do we have a motion to adjourn? We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Yes.
We have a second. All in favor say yay. Yay. Opposed, nays? We are adjourned.